Hi everyone, my name is Shay Shmeltzer. I'm Director of Product Management for the Oracle Development Tools. And this session is about Oracle JDeveloper and Oracle ADF 12c and what are the new features in those versions. First, let's talk about some of the versions you might encounter when you go and you look up for JDeveloper. There are actually 3 branches that you might be working with today. One of them is 11.1.1. The latest one when we're recording this seminar is 11.1.1.7. This version has the full Fusion middleware capabilities integrated into the IDE. It includes everything from the SOA suite to Web Center to BI. There's another version called 11.1.2. This version is kind of our 12c preview version, and we released it in order to provide some developers who are only working on the ADF part with the ability to leverage some of the new capabilities we were working on for the 12c version. Okay. This is an ADF only version. And the next version after that is 12.1.2. 12.1.2 is the 12c version of JDeveloper. This version, again, right now it's just JDeveloper and ADF, but very soon after we record this seminar, we're expecting it to start including the upper stack of Fusion middleware, including the Oracle SOA as the first component that would be integrated. This version also works with WebLogic 12c. And this is the version that we're going to talk about. Now, because there are those 3 versions, when I'm talking about new features, there might be some features that you are already encountering, and there might be features that you haven't seen at all, and there might be some features that I'm actually skipping over. So I'll try and touch on some of the main features in 12c, and hopefully you would see what it adds to your experience working with this development environment. Okay, so let's talk about the new features in Oracle JDeveloper 12c. So the first thing is that these versions align with JDK 7 and Java EE 6. Those are the versions that are also supported by the embedded WebLogic 12 version that is inside JDeveloper. Okay. In addition, you would also recognize a new look and feel to the IDE overall. And you will see that a lot of the performance aspects of JDeveloper have been improved. And this is because we're using a new OSGI architecture for the tool, which allows us to do things like on-demand loading of features and background processing. So the overall development experience with JDeveloper 12c should be much faster for you as a developer. We did a lot of things to improve the overall IDE, and some of them we actually borrowed from NetBeans. And if you're familiar with NetBeans, it's a development environment for Java, and it's developed by the same group that develops JDeveloper. Everything is right now reporting to the same organization. And we're actually sharing some code with NetBeans, including the OSGI infrastructure. What this allows us to do, for example, is pick up the NetBeans windowing system and apply it inside JDeveloper. And indeed, if you're working with JDeveloper 12c, you'll see some new capabilities for Windows. For example, if you're working on multiple monitors, you can actually take windows and areas and panels in JDevelopers and flow them outside of the IDE into a separate monitor or into a separate window. Okay. You can do things like customize the toolbar. You can do things like drag and drop the code editors to reposition them and decide which one is first or second and basically reorder the tabs. Another thing that we picked up from NetBeans is their profilers. So in 12c, we have a new set of profilers which are basically borrowed from NetBeans, and this includes the CPU profiler, a memory profiler, and a JVM monitor. All of them allow you to monitor your application as you run it and see how it behaves and improve the performance. We also borrowed from NetBeans its Swing editor and the ability to support the Matisse layout for your pages. Let's talk a little bit about lifecycle support. Again, when you're working in a project, you're probably working with multiple developers. You want to share code. You want to manage the code. As before, we still have support for a lot of popular version management tools. There's a new one that we now support, which is Git. Okay, Git is becoming very popular, and you now have it integrated into JDeveloper along with Subversion and the ability to work with CVS and other version management utilities. So pick the one that you feel more comfortable with. We introduced a new batch utility called OJ Format. And this utility allows you to run batch process that actually formats your code. It uses the formatter inside JDeveloper, and you can now run it outside of JDeveloper as part of your build process. Okay. If you're working with JDeveloper, you're probably familiar with our Team Productivity Center, allowing you to, again, collaborate in a team environment and manage your tasks and your to-dos. Into this feature, we now introduces the ability to do code reviews by your teammates. So you can actually review code and post comments on code and those type of capabilities. We introduced a new RSS newsreader, allowing you to both look at outside news, but also look, for example, at an RSS feed of your build status if you're using that capabilities. We now integrate with the HP ALM solution. And as before, we have integration with the Oracle Cloud. One aspect that is an effort across the whole Fusion Middleware 12c version is better support for the Maven utility. And Maven is a build utility which is becoming more and more popular. In many places, it replaces Ant. Okay? And we have support for Maven in previous versions of JDeveloper as well. In 12c, we improved it a lot across a lot of the features, including the ability to create POM for ADF libraries. You can actually create a Maven repository out of your Fusion middleware installation and where we host all your libraries, so it's very easy for you to manage that repository. We have Maven plugin for the OJ Make and OJ Deploy utilities. Those are utilities that allow you to compile and deploy your application using the JDeveloper infrastructure, and now you can invoke them directly from Maven. We can create projects from archetype. We can generate and view effective POM and many other capabilities for working with Maven, including better user interface and more declarative features for working and defining POM files and POM tasks. In terms of editor, we introduced support for the new HTML5 and CSS3 into our code editors. Again, you get code insight capabilities by using those editors. A very new feature, very exciting new feature is the Dependency Viewer. The Dependency Viewer allows you to see dependencies between files in your application and which file uses what other file. So by just right-clicking on a file, you can see all the files that depend on it, or the files that it depends on. Okay? This allows you to better understand the impact of changes you're doing to your code and what other files are going to be impacted by any change that you do. Everything is displayed to you in a very nice visual hierarchy way. Across the IDE, in every aspect, we did a lot of enhancement for usability. So just things like minimizing the amount of mouse clicks that you want to do, consolidating multiple steps in wizards into a single step, and overall trying to simplify and streamline your work with the IDE. So all of those things are things that you're going to see in JDeveloper 12c in the IDE itself. Of course, most of you are probably using JDeveloper 12c to work with Oracle ADF, the Oracle Application Development Framework. And this framework now has a new version, the 12c version. Okay. And we'll talk about the various layers of ADF by starting by talking about the view layer and the ADF Faces Components specifically. So in the ADF Faces Components, we introduced many new components. Some of them are layout components. One key new component is the grid layout, and grid layout is aiming to simplify the way that you actually build the layout for your pages. It gives you the concept of tables with row and columns, which is the normal way that people use to lay out HTML pages, and now you can implement it very easily inside JDeveloper in ADF pages. It allows you to create very complex layout very easily. The grid layout also reports any errors in your layout into your log window, so you can see that your layout is consistent and working properly. We also introduced some layout components that give you a more modern look and feel. For example, there's the drawer component, allowing you to have an area on your screen that pops up from the side when clicked on. Okay. There's also the springboard components, which allows you to show a menu of icons, okay, in a full page mode. And when you click on one of the icons, it basically animates into the top of the page, and you get those icons showing up at the top. And you can actually see this in the slide right now. Okay. Those two components, the panel drawer and the springboard, are actually aimed mostly at touch devices, which is a very important market that we're aiming for right now with ADF Faces. And that's basically addressing people who need to build web interfaces that are accessed from tablets, mobile phones, and other touch devices. Having those type of UI components make it possible for you to build UIs that are more efficient in their page layout and are more friendly to those type of touch gestures. In the DVT component, the data visualization component, we keep increasing the number of components and the capabilities that they have. We introduced 3 new components in 12c. One of them is called the Sunburst component. These components allow you to basically have kind of a circle that shows you division of data based on 2 dimensions. So one dimension can be shown by the size of slices, and the other one can be attributed and shown by the color of slices. Okay? And the other thing that the Sunburst can do, it can actually provide you with drill down into multiple levels. Okay? So you can actually see, for example, your sales by country, and click on one country and drill down into region in that country. Another representation, which is not circle, it's more rectangle, is what we call the tree map component. And you can see both of them on the screen right now. Okay, those are the one with the blue and the red. And again, both of them allow you to do drill down and show multi-dimension of data in one diagram. Another very cool component that we introduced in 12c is the timeline component. Okay, timeline allows you to show events that are attributed to specific points in time along a timeline. Okay, it's a very visual component, allows you to scroll the component, choose areas in the component, and you can show whatever type of data you want on there, and you can of course control the level of granularity of the timeline. It can be in years, it can be in months, and it can be in hours. It's all up to you. Just set the right properties on the component and you'll be able to use it. Beyond the data visualization component, we also introduced a bunch of new components for your regular pages. One key component is the list view. And the list view component allows you to show a list of items in kind of an array in a way that you might be familiar with from things like the contact list on your phone or the list of songs that you see on your tablet. Okay? And this list allows you to load records on demand. So for example, you can say initially just show me 50 records, and then there's a show more button at the bottom of the page. And when you click that, we load another batch of records. And you can scroll through it either with your mouse, or if you're on a touch device, it's a simple finger touch gestures that allow you to scroll. Okay. Another way that people show collections of data is the table component. And what we introduced in 12c is we brought back the capability to have a pagination table. So as you know, our tables have scroll bars on the side. In mobile environment, in touch environment, scroll bars are kind of frowned upon, and people prefer to have those type of pagination controls, so allowing you to do like next 10, previous 10, or jump to a specific area. And we now have this capability built into the table, so you don't need to write any code in order to implement it. You set a bunch of properties on the table, and you get this pagination working for you. In fact, on mobile devices, by default, we're going to show this pagination capability. Another component that we have now is a code editor component. Again, if you want to show in your web page code editing capabilities, including highlighting of specific reserved word, that's the code editor for you. And we also took the input file component and enhanced it to support multiple file upload and the ability to drag files directly into the browser in order to upload them. All of those are available for you for any ADF Faces page that you might be building. Another very unique component that we built is the dynamic component. So again, we have a lot of situations where customers ask us to create pages that change dynamically based on some aspects of the backend. And the dynamic component is a component that you can place on a page and dynamically would show as different types of components based on parameters that you're going to pass to it. And we actually integrated it with the binding layer in ADF. So when you, for example, drag over a view object and drop it as a form or a table on the page, one option is you specify the specific fields that are going to be shown. But another option, which is what you see on the slide, is that you say generate those fields at runtime dynamically. Okay? When you do that, in your code, you won't see an item for each one of the fields, but rather you'll see an iterator. Inside it, we're using the new dynamic component, and we're passing to it parameters that control how it's going to be displayed. Okay? At runtime, what the user sees is a normal page, a normal form with the normal fields. Okay? The advantage here is that if you change the definition, for example, of your view object, if you add fields, if you remove fields, your UI automatically adjusts to those changes. You don't have to go and modify each page that uses this view object. So this is a very new component, very exciting component, again, allowing you to create a more dynamic application with ADF. Overall in ADF Faces, what we're trying to do is make sure that your application that you built for web pages that are accessed from desktop browser would work just as well on browsers that are on mobile devices. And mobile devices have its own challenges. For example, it doesn't support Flash. It doesn't have a mouse associated with it. So you need capabilities that allow you to leverage touch gestures, that allow you, for example, to use HTML5 instead of Flash. And what we're doing is we're taking care of this for you out of the box. So you can take a page that was developed and run on a regular browser and run it now on the Safari or Chrome browser on your mobile device. We'll take care of showing the information in the right format, converting some components to HTML5 rendering, for example. We take care of recognizing touch gestures. So for example, instead of having a right-click menu option to get a pop-up window or context menu, you can actually do the tap and hold gesture with your finger on the device, and will pop up the context menu for you. Some components automatically adjust, as I mentioned before, the pagination in a table. Some of the DVT components automatically present a little differently. At the end of the day, the point to know is that you can use ADF Faces now to build touch-aware mobile UIs. One other thing that we introduced in 12c is a new skin for ADF Faces. We call it Skyros. And this skin is aiming to have several aspects. One aspect is better performance for your application. Okay? Another is more modern look and feel for your application. What we do here is we're moving from this three-dimensional type of look and feel into a more flat type of UI. This is the type of UI that all the modern devices, such as the iOS 7, adopted. Okay? And you can now have this type of UI available for your ADF Faces application. And one other aspect that Skyros does, it actually simplifies the way that skins are built. We removed a lot of the usage of images and replaced them with simpler div and CSS technique of representing data, adapting to the capabilities of modern browsers. This, by the way, means that it's simpler for you to now skin ADF Faces. Okay? So on this screen, you can see the before and after look and feel of the default ADF Faces component demo. Okay. And as I mentioned, we made it a lot simpler to skin your application by simplifying the skin itself. In addition, we created a new skin editor with a visual representation, allowing you to, again, very easily skin very quickly a whole application and define your own custom look and feel for your application. Another thing that we are focusing on is support for REST services. REST is quickly becoming the standard way for communicating between backend systems and front-end in a mobile world. And in JDeveloper itself, we introduced a lot of capabilities for creating and consuming REST services, including a WADL editor. WADL files are the equivalent of WSDL files for SOAP services. And we also integrated REST in a better way into the ADF layer, providing you the capability to create a REST service-based data control. So point to any REST service and create a data control while taking advantage of all the operations that REST provides, whether it's post, get, delete, etc. The ability to automatically generate the structure of the data by understanding returned XML from a REST service. Okay? and leveraging, again, multiple operation in a single data control. Again, something that changed from older versions of JDeveloper, making it simpler for you to create REST-based UIs. We also enhanced the bin data control. The bin data control is used both for POJO, simple Java classes, as well as for EJBs that are fronting JPA entities. And we introduced new capabilities into this bin data control, including support for the list of value concept that you had previously in ADF Business Components, support for scrolling or paging access to your data, and the ability to create stub method for transaction control, as well as the create insert and create with param support operations in your binding layer. So you can now basically take an EJB and, for example, use container managed transaction and still have commit and rollback operations available for you, as well as have the create insert and create with params operation that you can just drag and drop from the data control into your page. We also enhanced ADF Business Component. We created something called View Object Finders, making the searchability of View Object more powerful, as well as support for offline database support, meaning that you can now design your ADF BC layer even when you're not physically connected to a database, just by working against an offline database. Another part of ADF is the ADF desktop integration layer. This capability allows you to build Excel frontends that are accessing your Java backend, whether it's ADF BC, EJB, or any other data control, and directly provide you access from an Excel to your Java logic for getting and updating your data from your database or any other data source. And we enhanced ADF desktop all across the board, from performance aspect to the design aspect, with many new features. So if you haven't looked at ADF desktop integration before, something you might want to do with 12c. So those were some of the highlights of what's new in 12.1.2. Again, if you would look into 12.1.3, which is supposed to come out shortly after we record this seminar, so you might actually already have access to it, you'll see even more features, more components, more capabilities built into the framework. So in summary, JDeveloper and ADF 12c provide you with a better IDE and a better framework to work with, making your development simpler, faster, and more streamlined. If you want to learn more about any of those features or try out JDeveloper 12c, just go to otn.oracle.com/JDeveloper and you'll be able to get all the material you want in order to learn and use this tool. A very good thing to do if you're using JDeveloper is join our community. Okay, we have a Twitter feed, we have a Facebook page, we have a Google group, and in all of those we keep you up to date on the latest development with JDeveloper and ADF. So join the community and make sure that you're up to date on the latest updates. Thank you very much for attending this seminar.